And we're going, countdown. And we're live, everyone. Welcome, Welcome, you Keto Crew members. I am so thrilled, excited to be here. Our very special guest expert this month. You guys, did you notice we've got two this month? I promised you guys one a month, and this month we have two because I just couldn't wait to get Marylou in here. So today we have Marylou Hopkins. She is a real-life nurse, cardiology nurse, and she's a keto coach. And I know a lot of you are really, really excited for her to be here. So welcome, Marylou.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Where are you joining us from?
I am from Northern Virginia, so just outside of DC.
Nice, nice. Yeah. It looks like it's warm there. You got your windows open?
Actually, it's nice and cool.
Oh.
So, yeah, pretty like little fall weather today. It was great.
Oh, I was going to say you guys probably get actual real fall, right?
Yes. It's my favorite time of the year.
Me too normally, but I just moved to Phoenix, Arizona 3 months ago, and it's still like 105 today. So
I saw that. Good luck with that. Tell me about that next year.
Fall here means it's 10 degrees cooler than it was a month ago. Wow. Instead of 120, it's only 110. That's what I'm discovering.
I'm looking for a place where you can have fall all year.
I don't. Yeah. Does that exist? I don't know.
Maybe north.
Maybe
cold.
Maybe Seattle, but you still get 3 months of amazing summer up there. So
right.
All right. Well, Marylou, let's talk about your backstories. We're waiting for some people to join us, and I do have a question sent in from Karen. She's not able to be here today, but I've got some questions for you from her. But let me just throw out the caveat. Okay, so Marylou is a real life nurse. She's not going to be able to give any of you specific recommendations or diagnosis or anything like that. She's going to be able to share information, answer questions, but just keep that in mind, and that she won't be able to actually like solve your specific health problems. And that's their health concerns. That's just legal, ethical, and licensure thing, so we don't want to get her in trouble and make her lose what she's able to do. So we will phrase things in ways that are general information, and that's what she's able to provide for us here. So Marylou, how did you tell us your backstory? I know you sent in a really great it was like a chapter in a book of all where you've been, and it's all fascinating, so I want to hear it all.
So I came to keto actually from bariatric surgery. So I was a bariatric surgery nurse, and every year I keep forgetting what year it is, so, and especially this year. So I think it was about 14 or 15 years ago, I began my nursing career in bariatric surgery, and I spent 4 years there, and it was an amazing experience, and honestly something that I really am very grateful for when I do what I do now, because the job that I did in bariatric surgery, I would follow patients through their entire experience. And one of the reasons I started looking for another job was because, as I'm sure many are aware, anybody that knows anybody that's had bariatric surgery, it's wonderful. It's an amazing tool. However, it's a tool and it has to be utilized. And so after a few years of following patients that would have the surgery, lose weight, do amazing, then you would start to see this regain, and it's very disheartening. And I am a nurse, and I'm a practice what I preach nurse, which every one of my patients hears, but it was very hard for me because I was doing the same thing they were doing. I was eating small meals, I was doing the protein shakes, and I myself couldn't lose weight. If anything, I was actually gaining weight at the time. And then I started looking for another job and found that I really did like bariatrics, and I was actually going to go into another bariatric surgery practice. And then I met this crazy cardiologist. Absolutely insane. I thought the day I met him, because here I come from this background of calories in versus calories out, and portions and exercise, and this guy tells me he wants to treat his patients' symptoms with changing their foods first. And I remember when he handed me this little paleo sheet he gave people, and it said like, you give up your bread. And after the interview, I went to my kids, and my kids were like, so what'd you think? And I'm like, that guy's crazy. I'm not giving up my bread. However, with that information, I started to like get into this and look at, all the information he'd given me. And of course, Westman, Eric Westman, I came across, and I was blown away. It was almost a sealed deal as soon as I started hearing what they were saying, because it all made sense, because my bariatric surgery patients have this great tool, they lose the weight, and the correlation between the two was just phenomenal. What's the one thing they should not have, and most of the time can't because they can't tolerate it? Is sugar. So wow, wait, all of my bariatric surgery patients were not having sugar, and then when they did start to add sugar back, because that tool was not as effective the longer you use it, they'd start to regain weight. So I decided to jump on board with this crazy guy and start a program. We started our program at a cardiology practice out in Manassas, Nokesville area, or Gainesville. And when we started this, Dr. Eric Thorn, the one I work with, he said he wanted to mimic a program like Dr. Westman's. So what did I do? I rolled out to Duke, his little lifestyle clinic, and I actually reached out to him a couple of times and ended up studying with him, had a phenomenal experience in his clinic, and it was just mind-blowing. Brought all of the information that he had back to our practice, and we formulated a program that is very similar to his, with the exception of it's a nurse-physician type program. So I do all of the coaching, I do all of the teaching, and he does all of the doctor stuff. And so we've been doing this now for 9 years. So I haven't had a piece of bread in 9 years, guys, and I'm alive.
Oh my God, that's amazing. You've been changing lives. How does that feel to have that much impact? And do you know the stats, like the numbers of people that have been through your clinic and what kind of impact that's had?
It's phenomenal. One of the things that I respect most about Westman is his statement that, people ask him all the time, what's your success rate? It's 100% when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that means a lot. And the impact, when I started nursing, I really didn't know, I actually was not even considering this. And I can tell you today, it would be I don't know that I could ever leave it. I actually got an opportunity to work with and study with Jackie Eberstein.
Okay.
That was like my, that's that whole idol. Oh my gosh. Because when you're doing this and what you experience, and again, it's been 9 years that we've been doing this, and you've seen that trend of, products on the market and availability for just easier meals. You've seen that come up over the last 9 years, right? Well, 9 years ago, it was hard, and you didn't have all these options. Can you imagine back in 1976 when Jackie's coaching these people? And so it was phenomenal. It was a great opportunity. And I don't think I see myself ever doing anything else besides this. I love it.
Well, so I know who Jackie is, but for those who don't know that name, can you tell us why you were so excited to train with her?
I'm so sorry. I usually open with that. Jackie Eberstein. Jackie Eberstein is the only nurse that worked in Dr. Adkins' clinic, and she was the one that actually helped train Eric Westman back in 90 something, and she's phenomenal. And you know these people when you talk to a coach. They're a coach because you can hear the things that they're experiencing, that the patients go or the clients go through. And you figure out ways to kind of adjust everyone's foods to where it works for them.
Yeah, that's one of the keys, right? Is there's no one size fits all.
No, no two people are different, even when they eat the exact same thing. Yes.
Isn't that crazy? That's so weird. Yeah.
It is. And actually, I will tell you, that's one of my fun things is when we have, when I have patients that are like husband and wife or couple, and they're in our area, you know, we'll have some that are, I'm in a cardiology practice. So some of our range is higher. And so I'll have people that are retired and they literally eat together every day, the same thing, and they don't have the same results. So that's kind of one of those moments where I'm like, hey, now you guys get to see the truth.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times they think like, oh, it's not fair. Men lose weight so much faster. But I've seen the reverse where the wife is losing weight really fast and the man's one with the stubborn metabolism. So,
right. I think that's one of the biggest things that I push, especially when in my class, is please remember that no two people are the same. And that just because it works for someone else does not mean that it will work for you, and vice versa. If it doesn't work for someone else, it doesn't mean that it won't work for you.
Yes, excellent. Let's see. If I may share a little fun tidbit of my education. So I did my undergrad and graduate both in nutrition, and there was one of our professors taught an elective class in weight loss, how to lose weight and all the different methodologies and the biochemistry and all that kind of stuff. But of course, so this was in 2007 through 2012, not a class talking about low carb as an option. And she just one of the classes one day said that, she talks about bariatric surgery in her class, and she had this upside down funnel or something she taught, basically like you try everything first and every diet first, and like weight loss surgery is the last resort. And she said that it's really, really, really effective, but the statistics show that within 2 years, people start to gain the weight back. And I was just like, what? Yeah. And most people don't know that. And I just thought that was absurd. And I said, why do they put people through all of that risk of surgery and all of that work? And she says, well, for those 2 years, the improvement of their life, it's thought to be that that's worth it for 2 years of improvement of life. And I was like, wow, I wish there was something different, because back then I didn't know any different. So that's a little dirty little secret of it, right? Is that and
I'm sorry to throw in bariatric surgery, but it is really it's heart-wrenching. I mean, and I didn't say this earlier, but the reason I started to look for another job was because it was so hard for me to be the nurse that I am and be able to help them. And when you would go to, when you would go and say, why are they regaining weight, whether that's the nutritionist or the surgeon, it was always they're eating more and exercising too little. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I know these people, they're not doing that. And so then on the other side of it, my poor patients would come to me and they'd be devastated. I've done everything. Look, I did this and I did great, and now it's not working. And so I did the same thing. Like, I didn't know. This was what I did. This is what I was taught. And one of the other things that drives me nuts is how many people will recommend bariatric surgery over the keto diet.
Because it's safer, right?
Are you kidding? Like, it's mind blowing, but it's the times, and we have to remember that, all of medicine, we are taught a certain way, we learn a certain way, and it's hard to break those things, because when you break them, you're going against everything you've learned and everything you've been told. So I am very grateful for Eric Thorn, because he did break the mold, and he practiced with 12 other cardiologists. All of them trusted him enough to send their patients to him. And then they get to start seeing. And I have seen over time, I've had many, many physicians that are no way, no way, no way. And then all of a sudden their patient comes in, and I have one of my favorites is she was a hardcore vegetarian, hated me for everything I recommended, maybe not. This is my opinion, right? But my favorite part is, do you know that she actually started handing out Dr. Westman's material to her patients? Now, she is still a hardcore vegetarian and is like very like, oh, you should exercise, but she knows that it works, and she knows enough to be able to give it to her patients as a recommendation to make some changes. And I think that's phenomenal. That's where we start, and that's how it reaches everyone. So
yeah. Oh, I love it. Love it. You've got it. We're changing one person at a time, and then there's a tipping point of enough people, their doctor sees it, and then we get to change one doctor at a time, and it's a lot of, we've got a lot of work to do.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it.
I can see we've got Leticia watching, and I can see we've got one other person. So whoever's here, just type in the comments. Let us know you're here. I can't see who it is until you actually make a comment. So, and also if you've got any questions for Marianne, so if you're, I know somebody just joined us. So this is Marianne. Sorry, Marylou. Cardiology nurse that specializes in keto coaching and keto transformations with cardiology. Now, is it specific cardiology patients, or are you just getting everyone that needs weight loss? And most of them happen to have cardiology support issues, right?
Right. So we do. We have a great deal. We don't take anyone under 18 just because of the cardiology practice and their guidelines. We don't have any pediatric cardiologists. And then, hello. And then we have, so across the board, my patients don't have to come in because they have a cardiology problem. Now that our program is established, if they just need to lose weight, they can come in, they have a consult with the physician, and then they follow up with me, and then I kind of run it from there. And then we do labs depending on the patient, every 3 to 6 months to a year. And then they do their coaching. It's all patient driven. So, you know, what your stats are, well, unfortunately, I have people, I'm not even kidding when I say, so we've been doing this 9 years. I still see patients that I saw 9 years ago, but the frequency is different. So they struggle, or they're doing great and I don't see them, and then they start to struggle and then they come in.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some questions starting to come in, and I know, so Penny, I'll let you share your backstory a little bit if you want. Otherwise, I won't expose. I know we've got interview videos with Penny, though, so I'll just let her decide what she wants to share right here with everyone. But so she's, let's see, let's get in so your office, the fact you have a cardiologist and a keto nurse together, like it seems like the penultimate, like, head spin for people, right? So this is probably one of the top worries that everyone I work with, either, you know, before they start keto and or across, you know, as they start going into it, even though every number improves, except sometimes that one pesky one, everybody's freaked out and worried. And so, like, and that's, you know, one of the questions I had come in, actually, let me get that up and I'll give you kind of the gist of it too. So we'll talk about that. So let's transition to just kind of talking about, like, what about this high fat set? So I tried to get her before numbers. And again, this is going to be just general information. This is not going to be any specific recommendations of what Karen should do, but just a general question that Karen had. So she didn't have her before numbers, but she just had, and she's changed doctors. So she lives between 2 different states. And so her before numbers, she doesn't know. She started keto, and the doctor, where's my page out here? The doctor was concerned. So even though, okay, so her triglycerides are 43, her HDL is 109, her cholesterol to HDL ratio is 2.5. Okay, so she says, I'm not worried about those. But her total cholesterol is 276. Her LDL is 158. And again, so the doctor put her on prevestatin, because the number was too high. And again, I don't even know what the numbers were before. I don't even know that this doctor does, but he's going based on this. So let's see if we can frame this in a general way of like,
I can pretend like you just asked me that. So what I think I'll do is I'm going to treat you like you're the patient and you just ask me the question.
Yeah. Okay.
I missed the first part of that right before you started talking about the numbers. It broke up a little bit.
Okay.
But what I'm going to say to you is what I would say to my patient. Okay. And when we talk, because I have this happen all the time. And when they come in, they'll say, oh my gosh, I got my labs done. Look at this. So when you said, so first off, triglycerides are, what did you say? 43?
43. Yeah.
Would that be before or after the addition?
This is after keto.
No, addition of statin.
Oh, yeah. See, that's a good question. I think this is after the statin. Yeah.
Super low triglycerides.
Yeah. Let's see. I didn't get the date when that started, so correct.
It's okay. It's okay. So I'm just like kind of framing everything. All right. Yeah. So this is what I would say. I would say to you, listen, first off, your triglycerides are amazing. Okay. And what's crazy is if you think about this, Carole, and I don't know how much experience you've had with this, but the American standard for a healthy triglyceride is 150.
Mm-hmm.
She has 43. Mm-hmm. Triglycerides, when I see them, are a direct reflection, most often, not all the time, nothing is ever 100%, right? Most of the time, your triglycerides are going to be a reflection of your sugars, okay? Now, on the other side of that, what number did you say the HDL was? 100 and what?
109. Okay,
I think she wins for the highest HDL I've seen. Now, that is a lot coming from somebody that's been working in cardiology for 9 years and doing this. Very, very high HDL. Your HDL is there to clean up your LDL, right? So you have a super high HDL. You have a high LDL. You just said your ratio super small. She's cleaning up all of her LDL, right? Or you. That's right.
Me.
So anyway, so that little cholesterol thing I would not even blink at.
Mm-hmm.
Was the question something about the statin, or was it
just? Yeah, so her she's worried that the number the total and the LDL are too high, and we've talked about this a lot, but you understand how you often have to say things 10 or 17 times before it kind of sinks in. And not that because people aren't intelligent, it's just that when you've got 50 years of something being told that it's bad for you, it's hard to unlearn that. But she's also saying that the doctor thinks she needs to eat less red meat, eat more fish, and eat more berries, and eat more fruit.
Okay, well, we'll talk to that doctor later.
And
how I would respond to this in that, because guess what? Even in the same practice, I still get pushback sometimes, and it's fine. I get it. First and foremost, she needs to do whatever you feel, Carole, whatever you feel is best for you. One of the hard things, and when you said like people, you have to say it 17 times, you have to say it 17 times because it's freaking scary.
Yep.
You've grown up your entire life hearing all of this bad stuff. Now, all of a sudden, you're trying to get healthy and you have this LDL that's ridiculously high. And honestly, she probably does eat a ton of red meat because that HDL, when I see a lot of red meat eaters, those will jump up too, and it's fine. But again, it's a good one, right? The LDL is so stinking tricky because I have not been able to pinpoint like anything. It almost seems as if it is more like a personal hereditary DNA type thing, right? My mother's LDL, I think it's 222. And I was like, listen, lady, you don't need a statin because her HDL is super high. But then when she goes off and she's not eating well, I'm like, hey, get on a statin then. If that's your choice, like go for it. But that's my mother. I also know her, okay? And the other thing that you could potentially do if you have a cholesterol panel like that, get an NMR. Like those are a detailed breakdown of your cholesterol particle sizes. So basic terms like your LDL can be super large. And actually, Eric has a wonderful description of that. And he talks about marbles like going into a funnel. And if they're like a bunch of little hard marbles, then it gets stuck. But if they're not, then potentially they can make their way through. So that's kind of what an LDL is, because as those particles, the LDL particles enlarge, that total LDL goes up really high. Okay. Mm. And when it does, that does not necessarily mean that there's all those particles. Potentially, that just means the particle size has grown, so it increases that number. You cannot get that unless you get a lipoprotein NMR is what it's called.
Okay.
And again, it's just a breakdown of everything. So, perfect example, mother, her particle size was huge. And actually, I had an incident with her where she had lost about 60 pounds, maybe even more, in a matter of about 6 months. She went to her doctor elated because all he wanted to do was have her get bariatric surgery because she needed to lose weight. Okay. She goes in getting ready, like, I can't wait to see what he says. He's going to be so proud of me. And the only thing he says to her is, why are you not on a statin? And she said, what? And he said, why are you not on a statin? It was because her total cholesterol and her LDL were high. Now, the whole conversation was that she didn't like, she was kind of back and forth, and with Dr. Thorn, she was working with him. If she wanted a statin, she could have absolutely had it, but then she had the NMR and it was large and fluffy, and so her choice and decision was to not take the statin. So after her appointment, after he's talking about the cholesterol, he ends the appointment with that. He says, if you're not going to take a statin, I'm going to put in here that you're going against medical advice, and that was it. So the appointment was over. She calls crying hysterically. Never mentioned her weight loss. So it's, I heard you say something about that one number, and that's actually very true. Think about her A1C, her cholesterol, her C-reactive protein, all of those things in combination. That's what's important, and how she feels and what she's most comfortable with. But just remember, like, if you feel like that the total cholesterol is too high and that taking a statin is fine, go for it, man. There's nothing wrong. If you have problems, then you go back and revisit it.
So can you give us some insights into why is it that cardiologists, especially, a lot of doctors in general, but why is it cardiologists get so fixated on the LDL? What if all the other numbers get better? Every other number you can test gets better. Why do they get so worried about that one number?
How we started the conversation. They're trained that way, right? So this is ingrained. Pardon the pun. How many times do you say that? I say it all the time, but it's ingrained, and that's what they know. And the other thing to consider is, and again, personal, totally personal, not professional opinion, but I want to know what's going to happen in 20 years to our lab values. Okay? Because they're going to have to change. Because if people are getting healthier, but these weird numbers that we've been seeing over the last 45, 50 years of us eating bad food, right? We're eating bad food, and then they tell us these are our healthy numbers. Well, what's going to happen in 20 years when a lot more people are eating this way and realizing that it's healthier? It potentially could adjust those lab values. So I think, I mean, seriously, you look at even fasting glucose, cholesterols, what else do I see that changes kind of funky, because they're not having the swings of the sugars. They're not having these things that are drawing them up and down. Our triglycerides, honest, unless you have a medical condition that causes those triglycerides to go up independent of your foods, A lot of times, triglycerides shouldn't be above 80. Like you see them, right?
Yeah.
So that's like almost half of what the recommendation is.
Yeah.
So I think that will kind of happen kind of down the road, but just remember, this is what they know. This is how they've been taught, right? And this is across the board. This is, and they have to protect themselves too.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention, actually very important right now in this whole conversation, is that after that incident with my mother, one of the things, I mean, of course, I'm like livid, okay? I'm like, my mom's kicking butt here and she looks great and she walks out of her doctor's office crying. I'm so angry. So the one thing I do want to mention is that they are held to a standard too. So there's a lot behind the scenes where if your cholesterol, Carole, is 250 and that doctor does not say, hey, you have to go on a statin, it could be medical malpractice. So you have to be careful when you get into medicine, but always remember you're your own advocate. So you are your driver. This is your body, okay? And so if you have the ability to change your foods for forever and it works for you, great. But the other piece is how many times your little upside down funnel pyramid, right? So they try all these things and nothing works, right? Yeah. So when you're in medicine and you say, hey, I want you to go out, it's getting too hot over there, isn't it? You're 110 degrees. But they say, I want you to go and I want you to change your foods and I want you to lose 10 pounds and come back and see me. So this person goes out, they change their foods, they don't lose 10 pounds and they come back and everything is still crud, right? What do you think the physician feels like? They didn't do it.
Right. They blame the patient. Must be, because that's all they've learned is that, well, if your cholesterol is high, it's because you eat too much red meat, you don't eat fruits and vegetables, you don't exercise, you must eat fast food all the time.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like all of these, it's like I tell people all the time about just in general about changing your foods. There's a whole line. There's a lot of things that intertwine into everything we're dealing with. So as long as you're open-minded and you're patient and you have a good relationship with your physician, so that's the other one. Now, when you back up, having a physician that is, what's the good word that I want to, I don't even know the word, I'm so sorry. So is willing to hear you and willing to follow you closely, even if you're not making the changes they want you to make or whatever. That's key. It's really, which is honestly half the reason we're so busy. You know, you got this guy here, works with you, figures things out, and he doesn't not prescribe statins at all. Like, he will absolutely say it. But if the patient says, hey, I want to change something, can we try this or can we try that? 100%. You see what I'm saying? I don't know how to read comments, by the way.
Oh yeah, I don't think you can. I don't know that you can see them or not.
Okay.
Only when I put them on the screen. So I'll catch up with those in a minute. So basically, to recap and summarize, it's very complex. Doctors, keep in mind that cardiologists aren't trained in nutrition at all. So the recommendations of like eat less red meat, more fish, more vegetables and fruit, that's just stuff that they've heard. It's not their training.
They've learned, that they've been taught. Remember?
Yeah.
It's not hard, but it's taught. Yeah. This is what it's ingrained.
Yeah. They're also trained that if that LDL number is a certain thing, you have to prescribe a statin or you could lose your license. Also, you won't get paid by insurance. That's a whole other thing. Your insurance rate payment also is dependent on whether you're following standard of care, which is prescribing medication. So they have to do these things. And so they're not trained to look at the whole picture. They're trained to look at just each individual thing in isolation. So there's a lot of reasons that they recommend it. And it's not that they're bad or doing wrong thing. They're following what they're supposed to do. So how does a person go about, I mean, we're trained, this person's trained, they can prescribe medication, they can do surgery a lot of times. Like, how can we as a layperson feel comfortable at all in knowing if all that stuff we've been told isn't true, how do I know? Where do I go to get information so I can empower myself? So Cassie's asking, for example, she's asking for books or websites that we could possibly
actually. I feel terribly unprepared. I can send you a link. It should be on Adapt. So on the Adapt YouTube. So Eric is on there, Eric Thorn, and he actually has a was it on that, or maybe there was a Facebook video. I'm not exactly sure, but he has a video that he talks about how to talk about this with your physician. Okay. Perfect.
Adapt Your Life, or what's the?
Adapt Your Life, right? Okay. And then I'll have Eric Thorn, and if it doesn't, Carole, I will send you. I'll send you the link when we're done.
Okay. Cool.
Easy overview. You go in, you talk to your physician, you explain to them this is what I'm doing, and you also have to be prepared for them not to accept it. Okay, and if they don't accept it, you can be grateful. Thank you for your time. It's okay. And you can leave, and then you have to figure out something else. Now, having said that, there is a ton more physicians now than there were even 5 years ago. Okay. And you just find, and actually one of the greatest websites that I use all the time, Low Carb USA. Okay. You go in there, they have physicians listed. Now, I will tell you that going in there, it's a little weird because sometimes they're not really low carb keto, but it's fine. They're in there. That means they're going to hear you. It's about medication adjustment. Now with telemedicine, I'm just kidding. There might be more opportunity to find a physician that will follow your numbers. They have Virta. But I think Virta is more towards diabetes, but they're an online thing where they actually work specifically with your physician. And then I will tell you, we have people that travel. They come in and they'll meet with him and they do a class and they leave and then they'll come back as they need. So there's lots of ways, but you want to be comfortable and you want to know that your physician is hearing you. And if they don't, it might be time to find a new one.
So this is Penny's question in a nutshell. Yeah. How does a layman argue with a cardiologist? Well, there's a strategy to it. She just went through that.
Get me in there. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But so you don't argue. I think that's number one. Don't argue. Yeah. You don't have to argue. There is no argument there. You're going to do whatever you need to do that's best for you. You go in and like I say, you can, and now I'll tell you, 9 years, we have had 1 million people bring in tons and tons and tons of stuff to Dr. Thorn and be like, here you go. And he's like, yeah, I know. Like, okay. Now you take that to somebody else who knows. They might not be able to go through it or they might not understand it, but I would say, number one, don't stress too much. If the physician is willing to follow you, okay, and be able to make recommendations, they don't have to believe it because guess what? You're going to show them, right? You're going to be their first case. The next thing you know, maybe they'll be recommending to everyone else, all of the rest of their patients. But don't stress. If you have a hard time, if this is like my mother, that was her lifelong freaking physician, right? And she was devastated, but then she got over it. She found another physician, worked with them. He still pushed bariatric surgery, which really pissed me off, but it's fine. So, but you gotta understand where these people are coming from, and also know that I'm sorry I push it a lot, but please be your own advocate. If you know something works for you, if you feel good, and if you're seeing on those numbers everywhere, labs and scale and fat mass and all of that, come on, that's way healthier.
And I'm going to add a little some interjections more about the LDL, because I know that that's the one that the person who wrote in the question is like, my doctor's freaked out about this one number. But this is also something doctors aren't trained in. Again, they're trained like, if this number's this, then equals that, which is medication. Then they have to offer it again. Okay, so, but when I was in school, we were looking at research that showed total cholesterol and LDL rates and associations with heart attacks and stroke, which is really what people are worried about, right? That's what we're worried about. We're worried that our cholesterol is going to cause us to die of a heart attack or stroke or have one. And so we were in class and she's going over the bell curve. And so the bell curve looked like this. So the total number was like this. And the higher it got, the lower the risk it was. So they picked an arbitrary number in the middle that happened to be at that time 200. Just drew a line. They just picked a number, a nice round number. It didn't correlate with the worst outcomes. It was just that it was an even number. So I raised my hand in class and I'm like, I was that person that I was always like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Like, there's a higher risk. The risk doesn't get worse until you get out to like 400. Like, why did they pick it? And actually the risk at 220 was lower than it was at 200. So why? I said, why? And they said, the teacher was like, and this is professors at a, prestigious university. And this is just because this is how we're taught, right? So people that aren't questioners like me,
right.
Our professor said, well, it was just a nice round number. It's easy to teach that to people that way. It didn't correlate with risk. It's just a number. And so if you weren't paying attention in class and nobody asked that question when you were in class, you're going to miss that. Okay. Yeah. The other thing to know, and I don't know if cardiologists are taught this or not, but that LDL number does not correlate. This is building on what I just said. Like, that LDL number does not correlate with how many heart attacks you have or how many strokes or if you die of a heart attack. It's not. There are people who have really high. And so I interviewed a lady earlier today to work with, and she 2 years ago had a heart attack, and she said that her doctor was, oh, wow, that's puzzling because her cholesterol numbers were perfect beforehand. Perfect. And so then they had to come up with an excuse of why it was. And they said, well, you have some sleep apnea, so that's probably what caused it. So I'll just
did she have okay, wait a minute.
And she's on a statin now because even though her cholesterol is normal, they're worried about her. Well, but I mean, that's a whole other case. But
right. So all of that aside, honestly, one of the things that people miss all the time is your A1C.
Yeah, her blood glucose, she's pre-diabetic, and I'm sure her A1C. Yeah, so I kind of talked a little bit about that. It's a bigger correlation.
Exactly. The heart and A1C are hugely correlated, and nobody ever talks about it.
And insulin as well, which is my client that's written in with a question, worried about the LDL. I've had her tracking her insulin number, and it's come down. She's at like about a 6 or a 7, which is doing really well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But
and remember something else, Carole, like for real, as far as since we're talking about labs, is everybody is different. Everybody varies. So when you get these things, if you can take a step back and look at the overview, right? And like for the person that didn't have their labs prior, who knows? Maybe their LDL was already high, and then they changed their foods, and their fat like helped it to increase, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or the A1C, man. Like I say, or your insulin or your C-reactive protein, you're talking about inflammation markers there.
Yeah.
And just because somebody's CRP is high, that doesn't mean it's dangerous, right? It's something we watch. It's something that, right? It's another marker of another thing where if you can put everything together, it might make more sense, but you can't freak out about a change in 1 or even 2 or 3 numbers. If depending on the direction that they go, if you have somebody that is familiar with this regarding labs, It just, you'll go in and they'll be like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah. So Penny shared a little bit more about her history. So she had a lap band in 2009,
Yes.
and then she had lots of problems. We're getting the pieces
Sorry,
here.
Penny. I know what problems you had.
Then she had it drained, regained 50 pounds, and then she turned to keto, and she's been doing really great. But her cardiologist frowns on it because her LDL is high, but HDL is higher. She sent me another one here that says HDL is higher. And so she's, saying I think she needs to argue with her doc now. So we kind of talked a little bit about, you don't need to argue.
No arguing. It's a smile and wave, like, okay. Oh, is that how you feel? Thank you very much. And then you go look for another one. It blows my mind. Like, we go back to the bariatric surgery and she had lap band, right? What is lap band? It's literally squeezing to where you can't swallow things. Come on, man. Like, eat your foods. I have a lot of lap band patients that I will have them take their fluid out and jump on. And then, it was, I don't know if they still do lap bands today, but that was a rough one. But the fact she's come back down, she's doing good. And all her problem right now is the fact that her LDL is high. And again, I would tell her, get a lipoprotein NMR, okay? But she also has to get it because a lot of times they won't order it unless you are, unless they read them. So you want to have a doctor that will do it, and you just call around. A lot of them do, but call around and see. And it's just a blood draw, no big deal. But it'll just break down that cholesterol for her and give her some peace of mind. Now, if that whole makeup is all jacked, well, then maybe that's, maybe going on a statin is an option for her. And as long as she doesn't have side effects, again, her choice. What makes her feel most safe? As long as she's not having negative side effects, okay. But it's up to every individual patient. I never push on either side, ever.
I had another question. What was it? We got all the ones of the people that were watching here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll come back here.
So I see Cassie asked about resources, books. So the number one out there is obviously going to be The Big Fat Surprise. I do love that.
I see she just has a new cover on it. So
she what?
It's been updated with a new cover.
Oh, how exciting! But she's great at that. And the other one is Sugar the Bitter Truth. Yes. Sugar the Bitter Truth. Is that the one that came out like 2 years ago? Oh my goodness, why am I blanking?
Taubes?
Yeah, yes, Gary Taubes.
Like, the Case Against Sugar.
Case Against Sugar, thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry, they all kind of get mushed together. But the Case Against Sugar, I've been doing this for how long? Right? And when that came out and I read it and I was just like, oh my, I can't.
Yeah, right.
Because it's like, one of the ones you get all heightened about is, was the darn sugar that they soaked the tobacco in sugar. And I was like, because
inhaled sugar, like how much worse is that for your lungs? Yeah.
Right. So anyway, those are two great resources. The Big Fat Surprise I love because she does go through the whole timeline and where the fat theory came from, and then backs it up and kind of talks more about how today, we deal with it. But then again, like the sugar one was mind blowing because it just drives me crazy. It always. It's hard to control when you get a little passionate about things.
Have you read The Cholesterol Myth? I can't remember the author of that one.
I have not. Is it a good one?
Yes, where he just kind of talks about, he breaks down that LDL isn't associated with risk and on and on. Case against sugar. The other one, have you read Eat Rich, Live Long?
I mean, I have it. I haven't read it front to back. I'm really bad about that. So
that one I also really like because they do a condensed version of why we were told fat was bad for us. Okay. And then their favorite test, this is the question coming back to me now, is the CAC, the calcium arterial scan. Are you a fan of that? How does that compare to NMR?
So in our practice, there are patients that get it done. And I don't have a ton of information on as far as like, you know, how do I say this, not medically speaking. Does that make sense? So I don't want to overstep here. But we do have times where people will have crazy cholesterol. They get a calcium score to kind of look a little more at where they're at. Usually calcium scores aren't covered, so it's not something they order all the time. Mm-hmm. But I can promise you in our area, they'll have like sales on it. It's so weird. Like it's Macy's. It's Macy's. Yeah. Hey, we're having a sale today on our calcium score. Sign up now. So they do that in most areas. And yeah, you shouldn't spend more than $100 on it, but it's a good test to have. Now, you have some crazy cholesterol, you have a calcium score and it's high. It sways your own decision, right? Mm-hmm. What you need. But you have a crazy cholesterol, large particles, and then a calcium score that's like 0. Well, then guess what? Like, you may be okay. But again, just remember, this isn't medical advice. It's something you have to talk to your doctor about. And, but we definitely do that. But the only other side to that is that, you know, you might want to do, you do one now and then you do one in a year. Make sure they're okay and just watch them. But absolutely a calcium score would be beneficial.
In Eat Rich, Live Long, they actually give some recommendations about if your score was in this range, here's when you should get another one. And so that I like that too. So they break it down into that. So basically your overall summary is one number doesn't mean much of anything. We need to look at the big picture. We need multiple pieces of information to know if you're healthy or not. So for example, if somebody weighs 200 pounds, do we know if they're healthy or not? They could be 6'7". They might be too skinny. They might be overweight. So just one number doesn't mean anything. Let's say if it's 70 degrees out, does that mean it's hot or cold? Well, it depends on if you're in the Antarctic or if you're in Arizona. Yeah. Yes. What's the humidity? Right. How much clothing are you wearing? Right. Because if you have 3 coats on and it's 70, that's going to be too hot. Right. So we need more information. So
I love that analogy, Carole. I really like that.
Excellent. Well, it looks like it's almost time to wrap this up, Marylou. Is there anything else that you want to add or share? Any other tips of wisdom or experience, 9 years of doing this?
Well, okay. You want to hear my favorite one?
Yes.
Okay. You guys are all going to hate me for that. So the one thing I would tell, so I hear people all the time, that's their question, like, what's the one thing you see as like the biggest, I don't know, thing that messes everybody up is nuts, guys. Mm-hmm. Any kind of nuts. Every kind of nut and every nut flour, stay as far away from it as you can. I heard your girl last time said, don't do net carbs. That's 1,000%. But the nuts thing, it's a hard one because it's on every website. If you are struggling with your weight and you are eating nuts, cut them out and tell me how you feel.
Yes, that's one of my starter rules is I have everybody cut out all nuts of all kinds because for most people, one is never enough. And and I love that you included the nut flours as well, because even though we've got so many wonderful options for keto foods now, we're kind of going a little bit too far into the desserty territory, and nobody needs to eat an entire piece of some carby dessert that's made 100% from almond flour, because that's the equivalent of like a pound of nuts that they're eating in that one thing. So
it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And for me, from my like I say, over the last 9 years of coaching patients, it's so the response that we have towards any kind of the nut family is so strong that I can detect it when they come in. They'll walk in and I'll be like, they'll start talking, and I wait a few minutes, and then I'm like, hey, you eat any nuts? And I'm not kidding when I say that it would be more than 75% of the time they're like, oh yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Because
they're high in protein and they're good fat, so they must be fine.
Absolutely. Exactly. So stay away from the nuts and nut flours. How about that?
Yeah, that's
and
great.
One day my cookbook will come out, but it might be after I die. I don't know. I haven't gotten around to making it. So it's fine.
I'm in the same boat. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. How do people on the East Coast come and find you? Are you guys doing telemedicine or?
So I don't know state-wise. I think they're a little different right now, but we are at Virginia Hospital Center. Oh, I guess I didn't say that either, but we're at Virginia Hospital Center. It's Dr. Eric Thorn. VirginiaHospitalCenter.com is our website. You can look that up, and then and if they just need a physician to see them for that, they don't have to do my program. Okay, so we have a lot of keto people that need their labs. They want to be followed. They'll come and just see him. He knows what's going on, and he can adjust things for them.
So take a vacation out there, you guys. Go see the wonderful, perfect fall out where Marylou is, and if you need a cardiologist to oversee your healthcare, who's keto friendly. You don't have to do any arguing at all. You can do some high fives.
Well, quarantine fives.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Right.
Plastic gloves through a plexiglass shield. High fives. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for answering.
It wasn't too long. Good.
No, this is perfect. So yeah, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up all. Thanks for all your questions. Thank you, Marylou, for being here. And we'll wrap this up for days. It's been so fun. This has been great. Indulgence in talk about topics that I love to rant about. And we got a lot of work to do in the world still.
Well, we're here. We got this.
Yeah.
Carole, by the way, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time. I know you have a super busy schedule, so I really appreciate it.